to have Dr. Phil Palmer on the last time. And what I was doing, folks, and for those folks listening on audio, we on YouTube as well, I was fiddling around in this thing, Phil, just the other day, and I was like, got to get him on again. This book of yours, The Quest for Improved Athletic Performance. It was so helpful to me, helpful to many folks with the podcast. So glad to have you. Welcome back, man.
Thanks, Mark. Nice to be with you.
It's my thrill. It's my pleasure. I reached out to you and I said, let's connect again. And you were like, well, this is perfect timing. I've got lots of stuff. And so we have the benefit of video here. So I'm going to do my best radio for the audio folks. Folks, go to YouTube. I've got Dr. Phil and I've got Jerry in the background who's doing some stretches before. He's our victim. He's going to demonstrate the exercises. So Phil, first tell us about you and then we'll dive into this.
Okay. So as you know, Mark, I enjoy treating people with motor control training. Mm-hmm. Golf is becoming more athletic, as you know, and all sports, the athletes are quicker, bigger, faster, stronger.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do here is, for this particular demo anyways, I think is we're going to try to make things low tech as possible and show people what they can really achieve with motor control training. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing as training for speed in your golf swing. You don't want to sacrifice the functional components of your golf swing and lose those foundational components, for the sake of speed, like Rory talked about. Yes. He said, well, I chase speed and it hurt my golf swing. The same thing with an exercise program. We want to make sure that we're maintaining our structure when we're doing things so that, number one, we don't injure ourselves and lose time. Mm-hmm. And secondly, that we maximize the gains that we're going to achieve.
I'm so glad you said that because, people, a lot of folks, I used to be in this camp. You think of going to the gym and then you think of playing golf and they almost appeared poles apart in what was being done in the gym. But you use that term functional. And so many times I just see clients, and with my limited knowledge of this subject, I'm like, just get out and move, throw, kick, run, jump, all that sort of thing. So I'm glad you're going that way with the motor control, really.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's simpler, Mark. It doesn't have to be like we talked about on the first podcast. It doesn't have to be Olympic weightlifting where you're introducing a high degree of injury potential there. You can do a lot of things to increase your speed and improve your performance without necessarily putting yourself at risk. And I think that's a super important point.
And the beauty about it, folks, all the things that Dr. Phil has here in the little book he put out, The Quest for Athletic Performance, you can do these with no weights. This is just you, yourself, and some space. So let's dive in. Jerry, are you ready for us?
I am.
Okay. Okay, it's all yours, Dr. Phil. Go.
Okay, Mark. So what I want to do, I just want to do a quick warm up. I want to do a couple exercises for each component of the golf swing. So posture, the backswing, transition and downswing, impact and follow through. And I thought maybe that would be the most appropriate for your viewers and listeners.
Oh, lovely. All right, off we go. Let's start.
Okay, so let's start with the warm up.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to start with firstly the hamstring sweeps. So Jerry's going to warm up his posterior column and his hamstrings. Right. So we're just going to go through it, Jerry. You're going to just go through how we did before. Yeah. Perfect.
So for the audio folks, what Jerry's doing is he's basically looks like he's doing a hamstring stretch where he bends in the trail leg, straightens out the forward leg. But then there's that element of just the sweep with the arm. Describe that for me, please, Phil.
And turn around, Jerry. So what's happening, Mark, is as he's getting his weight onto that forward leg and keeping that forward leg straight, he's pulling that hip back and sweeping his arm forward, which will increase the stretch through the hamstring, the glute, and the lower back.
It's a very gentle looking motion. I mean, so oftentimes I see folks doing hamstring stretches and it looks just grueling. This looks elegant in a way.
Right. Well, I think what you're referring to is that they look very static. There's no movement. They're just trying to push down as far as they can. And this involves your weight actually moving two areas in separate directions. Your arms are going forward and your hips pulling back.
Sensational. So how many of these would you recommend as we in our warm-up?
I would just say maybe 45 seconds to a minute of that. Okay. And so then we're going to, and then I wanted to do a variation of an open book, which is a simple exercise, but I wanted to add just a little bit of extra for your listeners and viewers. So Gary, if you do the open book. And this one is in my book, Mark. So
Okay.
you'll be able to see that. So he's going to do what would be a normal open book exercise.
He's laid down with his legs at a 90-degree angle, arms stretched out to his side. Then you just basically take the one arm and make a wide sweep all the way over to the other side, just opening that mid back area. Am I correct?
Right. Now I'm going to put a medicine ball in that hand that he's opened up. And what he's going to do is keep this shoulder back, and he's going to press up through his sternum to the sky. So that's really going to get that oblique sling activated. He's going to hold that for a 3 count. Then he's going to pull that shoulder blade really hard back and down so that we can work on the same side oblique, and that scapular stabilizers in there.
This is interesting, Phil. I want to describe this. He's in the same open book position. But right now with the left arm, he's got that extended to the sky, holding what is that, like a 5-pound, 10-pound medicine ball in the hand?
Exactly. That's a 5-pounder. And he's driving his shoulder blade back and down.
So basically almost pushing the ball to the sky and then driving it back down to the mat.
Right.
This one looks like it could be hard work there, Jerry.
Right. So we're activating these muscles that we need for the warm-up, Mark. So they're ready to go, right? So we have to look at posture as kind of the gain in your nervous system. So the better your posture and the more activated your muscles, the more contraction you can get out of them.
Interesting. You use that term activation while Jerry goes there. I want to talk about that some, because moons ago, Tiger Woods used I couldn't activate my glutes thing, and this became viral on the internet.
Yeah.
But now as folks have learned more, it's real. You've got to kind of start your engine, if you will.
Exactly right. Okay, Jerry. So we'll do the banded child pose now. So one last one, Mark.
All right.
This is to get the hips open, and also he'll get a bit of a stretch through his lower back too. He's going to just step through a cord. Can you see that okay, Mark?
I can see him just fine. So you're going into...
So he's going to use this band. This band is going to assist him with the stretch. So he's going to get his knees wide open, his feet as far apart as he can with his toes. Yeah, like that. And that band, he's going to sink back in there with a neutral lumbar spine. He's not going to allow this to flex. And he's going to push himself back, and the band will add some resistance to that push.
So I would, if I was describing this to the audio folks, please go check it out on YouTube, people. It looks like he's almost in a frog, maybe a downward dog to a certain extent.
Exactly.
Those folks know those positions with a band across his waist, and there's tension on the band. It's connected to something off camera here. And so now he pulled on the band, but now it's releasing himself to the pressure a little bit.
Yeah, that band is going to actually help pull him back and accentuate that stretch through the hip, and especially through the front part of his hip, which is important, as you know, because of the hip flexor.
And with the arms are still out in front of him above his head, the hands are not moving position. So this is almost lengthening the spine to a large extent too, correct?
There would be some decompression there. And the important aspect is not to allow the lower back to flex. A lot of people, when they start this, they'll flex their lower back.
Okay.
And they won't get the most out of the stretch. So
this looks like something yours truly is going to go and try as soon as we're done with this call. All right. So we're through the warm-up phase of it now, right?
We are. And we're going to start into the posture. Okay. And we're going to start with, I think this will be a very good one for most people to try. So we're going to grab the same cord. Again, Mark, nothing heavy. This can all be done light. We need to have perfect technique, not heavy weight.
Yeah, this is using rubber bands, folks. Those athletic rubber bands.
Right. Easy to buy off Amazon.
All right. Yep.
So what we're going to do here, so we're going to work our postural moves. So our posture needs, like we talked about, we need to be set, and we need to have things turned on. We don't want to be sloppy and lazy. There's no pre-stretch or pre-activation there. We need to be ready to go. So what we're going to have Jerry do, now we can do this, Mark, on 2 legs or 1 leg, depending on the advanced, how advanced the patient is or the student. He's going to pull this across, and then he's just going to push it out without allowing his upper body or lower body to rotate for now. So he's just going to grab this, shoulders back and down. You can get in a golf posture. Watch that your lower back's not arched, and then just push that away. Okay. So you can determine how much resistance you have here by how far you are by the pole.
Tremendous. So folks, for the listeners again, I'll just describe. The rubber band is connected at what is about midriff height, I would say, just underneath the chest. And
Kind of at the bottom of your sternum.
right now, Jerry's grabbed it. He's in his golf posture with arms out in front of him, and he's put tension on that band. I mean, it's working him. It's wanting to pull him, but he's holding his shape. He's holding his posture, and then just extending the arms out in front. You talk about the shoulders back and down. This looks to me like it could get those shoulders internal quite quickly. Does one have to fight that, Phil?
Absolutely. So that's a good point, Mark. You need to be able to hold this motion, right? Because as you go back in the swing, you don't want to lose that trail elbow behind you, right? And by turning on your shoulder stabilizers, your scapular stabilizers, it'll help to keep that trail elbow more in front.
Sensational. Hey, Yowza, you talk this thing, you could break a sweat in your posture workout, I'm sure, because this is hard work.
Now, if you wanted to make this harder, he's just going to stand on his right leg, which is his trail leg, because he's a right-handed golfer. He's going to do this one-legged now. So he's not going to be able to sway or move off the ball or move his head back. We're going to stay really solid and just keep that same idea there.
Those obliques and such are working right. They are lighting up, I'm sure, right?
Right. So simple things, relatively basic exercises, Mark, but extremely productive in terms of how we can relate it to the golf swing.
Phil, I want to say this. Gary, you can take a break. Phil, I want to say this. So many golfers I've seen, and I want your take, please. They get into posture, but they're not ready. They're not athletic.
Right.
They're just kind of there.
Yeah.
I throw myself in that camp too. When the golfer just gets over the ball, the only real force that's sort of being applied is some feet to the ground and some hands to the club. But the body is not alight. It's not ready. And that stuff Jerry was going through there, he's woken up a little bit.
He sure is. Well, you see it with a lot of other sports, like whether it be boxing or martial arts or hockey, or if you're going to take a slap shot, you need to have that center turned on, right? And by turning on that center, you actually turn on your glutes. It helps you to turn on your shoulders so that you're prepared to, once you impact, to hit, right? It's the same thing in golf, as you know. A lot of the force has to be released at the ball. And by turning on these muscles earlier, you're able to activate larger fiber groups as you go, fast twitch fiber groups.
Well, that's very interesting. Yeah, because if those areas aren't woken up and then you suddenly ask them to move at accelerating speeds, you essentially asking your car to perform with no gas, correct?
Exactly right. Exactly. So,
all right, Jerry, have you caught your breath there, my friend?
I have, ready for the next one.
I had a few more for the takeaway, but I think we'll go into more of the backswing or the posture rather. We'll go into the backswing load now for the sake of time, Mark.
All right, that sounds good. And again,
Okay.
the folks can go and find your book, Quest for Athletic Performance, if they want to see more. And
Okay.
Dr. Phil puts out a lot of good content. So we've got that posture drill. Now we get into some backswing stuff. We're still using that band that's connected to the side of Jerry, I'm sure.
Yep. So I have another band. I'll just grab it. It's right here, Mark. So this is a band the tribe can get. Again, relatively inexpensive, but they can also use the same band that we were using before. But for the sake of this demo, I'll use this one. What Jerry's going to do. Okay, so this is a great backswing drill, Mark, especially for width. Because as you've mentioned in your cast many times, and you've had Justin Parsons on talking about this, most golfers are too narrow. So what Jerry's going to do, he's going to step inside here. You're going to step inside here, Jerry.
Okay.
Okay, and what I want you to do is put that around your chest and arm. You're going to face this way, maybe just so that the viewers can see it better. Okay, so step here. Okay, now I want this around your chest. Okay, now I want your arm in
While
here.
they're setting up, folks,
And here.
Dr. Phil has Jerry's inside the rubber band.
Yep. And now what Jerry's going to do, I'm just going to hold it here, Mark, and support him. And he's going to get in his golf posture. Good shoulder tilt. So he's going to tilt back like he's taking the club back. So he's going to go back. And now he's going to extend his arms straight and hold those angles and hold that golf posture. I'll move out of the road.
I love this. Okay, let me describe. So he's inside of the rubber band, addressed it so as you would address a golf shot, but holding the rubber band. And as he makes his rotation back, there's pressure put on the band. But as you get to the top of your backswing, you straighten your arms away from you.
Yeah.
And this looks like a pretty good workout for all elements of the body there.
Incredible, right, Mark? So we're activating everything. His rear glute, you see, he's got good hip depth. He's got his obliques going. He's got that, we got the chest up to the sky and his arms away. So people can really get the feeling of what width feels like at the top.
That chest up to the sky thing, I'm glad you referenced that, because folks, at the top of his motion, he's not just pushing his arms directly away from him. He's pushing them up to what would be about, like 10 o'clock or so on a wristwatch dial, correct?
Right. Didn't Wilco Nienaber talk about taking his arms to 10 o'clock?
Yeah, he does. He tries not to go farther than that, because as he goes farther, he loses all shape, all dynamism. And on the way down, you're trying to match up. I mean, this looks like I can see the back muscles there, because folks who are listening, we're looking at Jerry from the rear view. You can see those scaps, that the lats and stuff, just doing stuff there at the top of the swing too.
Right. Exactly. Good, Jerry. Okay, rest.
I guess that, Jerry, grab some water. You know what I love about this too? And again, like we said, Phil, where at address, folks can be a little lazy.
Yeah.
Heck, folks can be a little lazy at the top of the swing too. And I just saw something by Mike Bender, who's been on the show, and he talked about that buggy whip in transition, the loose arms, the collapsing of stuff, where Jerry was at the top of the swing, everything was engaged and working.
Right. And I think most people, Mark, don't know what that feels like, in all fairness. It's very difficult to describe that in vocabulary. But with this, you can feel it. They can get the sensation of what width and being turned on feels like, athletically speaking.
All right. What's next?
Okay. So how about we go to transition and downswing, if that's okay with you?
Sounds good.
And again, we want to be active and we want to be pretty powerful when we're doing this stuff. So Jerry's going to stand on this. So I've got this Bosu. Okay, Mark, and I'm going to make it hard on Jerry just because I like him and I want him to do well. But we're going to turn this so the blue side is down.
So the Bosu ball, folks, is that Swiss ball with a flat edge with a hard bottom. So you can normally put the hard bottom on the ground and then stand on the top. Well, Dr. Phil has flipped this, and it looks like he's going to challenge Jerry to stand on the top of this. All right, Jerry, bring your balance and your body engagement.
So here's the rationale behind this exercise. Right. So at the top of your swing, okay, in order to get down and in the ground again, we need to get this anterior oblique sling firing, right? So if you looked at the golf swing, not from bent over, but from straight up, you're kind of doing this motion, right? But it's on an angle like that. So we need to get these slings going.
Okay, while you're doing that, now I want you to describe the sling in a second. The motion that Dr. Phil was describing was like if you were pulling something down from above you and you're bending at the hips and you're bending at the knees and you're essentially pulling force to the ground. But describe the anterior sling for the folks who aren't familiar with what that area is.
Okay, Mark. So that's a group of muscles that are integrated together, that run from the front of your hip up through your abdomen, chest to the opposite shoulder.
Okay. So it's like it's diagonally across one.
Correct. In the front. There's one in the back as well. And you'll see as you know, Mark, with all the great players, that if you look at their head from the top of the swing and into the downswing, they're losing height, right? They're getting into the ground.
Isn't it crazy how long or how many pundits, and I use that term loosely, criticized Tiger Woods for that very move in the early portion of his career. And then when Tiger got inaccurate off the tee, it'd be like it's because he's losing height. Now, one can do it excessively and react too fast and react the wrong way. That downward plugging in the ground, that's what moves the club down. Am I correct?
Yeah, you need that in order to get force back out after, right? Because there's an opposite and equal force in every direction. So in order to get, as you know, back out, right, with that powerful hip moving out of the way and some extension of your legs, and you need to get in first.
Yeah.
Down and in to get up.
Special stuff. So let's see how we can do this, because I know everyone listening to this podcast wants to use those ground forces a little bit more.
So what Jerry has to do here, Mark, is he has to maintain his balance on the Bosu. So we're going to bring in a stability component to this as well, because we don't want him sliding too much, right? We want him to be stable, but we want him to be able to activate this all together and powerfully. So he's going to have that 5-pound medicine ball again. He's going to try to keep that arm as straight as he can again for width. That's that idea of width. And he's going to throw that to me as hard as he can, kind of across his body a bit.
Okay, so folks, he's balancing on the ball. That's a good balancing job.
Good.
Arms raised above him. He's got that 5-pound medicine ball in the palm of his hand, but stretched up to the sky. And it's no bending of the arm when you're throwing the ball, Phil. It's a straight arm, sort of a push toward you motion, correct?
Exactly right, Mark. So we're trying to get all this whole lat that it inserts up into the arm, and we're trying to get this whole thing to act as a unit together, as opposed to in separate pieces.
That sounds awesome. I'm keen to know this too, because you talk about activating that sling area.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing because he's balancing on the ball, that's what's keeping the left leg, and he's throwing the ball with the right hand. That's got that area also working hard to retain the balance. Am I right in my assumption?
Right. So his legs will be turned on, his glutes will be turned on. He's got to be stable. So that would translate really well, really nicely into not overdoing this sliding forward movement.
Absolutely, yeah.
Being able to get down in, and then as he throws it, Mark, he still has to get his legs into it a bit. So it kind of still gets that extension move we're looking for.
And what I like, because I'm really dogmatic in the swing about a golfer understanding center. I mean, every great rotary sport, figure skaters, you talked about ice hockey, all these baseball, exactly. Yeah. You'd think of the discus thrower.
Mm-hmm.
You can understand where you're rotating and the area you get to rotate within. Balancing on that Bosu ball like that, if you move one side or the other, you taking a tumble.
Yeah, you're going to lose it. Yeah, for sure.
That's tremendous.
So we can do that on both arms, Mark.
And I asked about frequency earlier. You measured in time for one of the warm-up exercises. Is this a repetitions thing, or what would you recommend?
When you're training these kind of movements, you don't really want to get too deep into fatigue, because what happens is you'll start to compensate and you'll start to lose the structure of your body segments. So really
paramount.
Yeah, form is paramount here. We're not just doing the reps for the sake of completing reps. We're doing them with excellent technique. And when that breaks down, that's our body's cue telling us we've had enough.
You know what? I think to a certain extent, that's liberating for listeners and viewers of this too, because one goes to the gym and you work yourself into a pulp and you kind of stumble your way out there, where here you do just enough. It's kind of like the golfer over practicing. You do just the right amount, you get your body working correct, and you sort of set the tone and set the habit for the form.
Right. They've done new studies, and I forget the author, but it just came out about how you don't need to get gains in the gym. You don't need to go to failure or exhaustion on every set that you do. If you're kind of in that 2 to 4 reps away from being at failure, you can still get a lot of muscular gain from that.
Fantastic. All right. So we got that was the balance involved one. Give us the name of that exercise, the toss pad.
You know what? I just call that a Bosu medicine ball toss.
All right. Simple as that.
Yeah.
And that was for transition. That was for getting into the downswing, correct?
Right. For getting that power into the ground and getting this turned on so that you can rotate hard through it. Because Mark, a lot of people, and I heard this from one of your guests, you're kind of actually like, when you get in the backswing and you've got good shoulder tilt, and you'll see this in excellent baseball hitters, like home run hitters as well. Right. They're pre-stretching. They've kind of like crunched this rib and hip together before they let it go. Mm-hmm. Right. And you're kind of here, you're pre-stretching on this side in order to get this contraction harder. Yes. Right.
Yeah. You know what you described, and it's sort of that piston action on either side of the body.
Right.
The more I learn from guys like yourself, and the more I get to speak to folks, people say, look, a muscle can expand and contract. That's all it can do. And it's got an area it can work within. And as you're doing that exercise with Jerry and what you talk about, there's that expansion and contraction in everything that's working in the golf swing. And that's how the muscle groups load, fire, release, whatever you want to call it.
Right. And I think if a lot more people could actually get these turned on and working in their side bends, you know, they'd hit it a lot further.
I want to camp there for a little bit, because a lot of folks lose that forward bend at address, then into the back, and they lose that side tilt, the shortening of the left side for right hand and the lengthening of the right, and then vice versa when you change direction. Jerry is demonstrating for us very well in the background there. I want to camp there for a little while, because most folks turn because they're trying to turn big, because they thought that's what they've got to do for power, and they lose all their shape and their arms just go all over the show. And the next thing, finding the golf ball is nigh impossible. I want you to stay there for a little while. You've got the exercise. Is there anything else folk can do to sort of promote that forward tilt and rotation in that area?
Yeah. So what we can do is, Gary, if you go back in this band, this is a good question, Mark. So you're going to get this around your shoulders now. So you're going to step into it. And again, you can face actually, Mark, this time so he can see.
So it's the same punishment band that's connected.
Well, actually, I'll have to
right now.
Sorry. So go and face the window. Okay, so he's going to get into his golf posture again from there, Mark.
Got the band across him, arms crossed over in front of him, and the band's at about chest height.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, now you could just set up another band, but I'll just get another one in behind his hip. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try to bring his hip forward. Okay, so I'm going to be on this side of him, this way. He's going to have to now tilt. So go into your backswing, full backswing, Jerry, this way. Now I'm going to try and pull him forward. And the only way he can stay up is if he gets this and this going. There's no way he can stay there.
Folks, this is fascinating. You've got to have a look on YouTube. But to describe it as good as I can, Jerry's at the top of his backswing with a band across his chest that he's rotating against. And Dr. Phil has a rubber band around his waist that he's trying to pull towards where the golf ball would be.
Right.
And Jerry is essentially turning deep with that right glute, that back glute. And you say that's waking up all of that stuff down the side of the body, right?
Exactly. So somebody could just put another one of these bands, Mark. They could just put it at an angle even around there, just step through it and have another band coming this way. Simple.
Awesome. And that's going to help one to stay in tilts at the top of the swing.
Right. And turn this whole, get all these obliques. So he has to, for him to resist me, he has no choice but to get this thing together and to let this go, and vice versa.
Awesome. Right. Okay. So we've got the transition. Let's move to the moment of truth here, please.
Okay. So let's see here, Mark. I think probably the one that would be most beneficial to most people. Okay. So again, we're going to talk, because it's a popular topic again, is the early extension.
So one thing I want to say, folks, Dr. Phil has got multiple exercises for all of these that he's showing. He's just picking one that there's essentially a beginner exercise, an elite athlete exercise, and sort of the middle of the road. And that's where we're camping right now. And if you want to see more, you can just check in with Dr. Phil. All right, off you go.
So it's kind of similar to what we did on the last exercise, Mark, to accentuate his obliques, getting this apart and crunched, and then the opposite way. Jerry, you can stand here. I'm going to put this around Jerry's waist.
Right.
Okay, so maybe move out this way a bit, Jerry.
This braided rubber band again, folks.
So again, I want to use this. This is called NRT. So it's Neuroreflexive Training. And what we're going to do is make his body fight the opposite direction. So if he's having trouble early extending, we want to try and pull him into early extension, thereby forcing him to feel what the opposite is, because some people don't really know how they're supposed to feel to move, to stay deep with their hips.
Yeah.
So he's going to go back.
Well, this is the kind of thing right now, folks, what Philip is doing is he's got the rubber band around Jerry's, what looks like hip bones.
Yep.
And Jerry's dropping into posture, and Phil is holding the band out in front of him. Phil's kind of where the golf ball would be, putting pressure on that band. So he's trying to pull Jerry into early extension.
Yeah.
And Jerry is trying his best to stay in posture and fight that force.
And the important thing here, Mark, it's a subtle nuance, but it's important, is that I'm pulling him down at an angle, because I want him to understand that as he's going through impact, that he's pushing his hips away from the ball at an angle. He's not just pushing his hips and losing height, right? He's pushing trying to keep his head on the wall and push his hips away to give himself space. So that you need to be down at an angle for this.
I think so. He's staying at it. So the band is connected. One could do this by oneself.
Yep. And now he's going to come through and I'm pulling him down and forward. So he has to feel that back and away.
Good Lordy, folks. If you're not looking at this, if ever you fight fought with your spine angle straightening and your grill room golf buddies tell you you're lifting your head, well, this one is going to take care of that.
So what are you feeling, Jerry, exactly when you do that? Maybe you can explain it to the listeners. When you're coming through.
I am feeling like I'm almost like, it's almost like a squat while I'm rotating.
Well, that's the thing too. So many folks.
There you
A
go.
rotating squat. It's kind of weird.
Good. Perfect. Excellent.
And I want to ask you a little bit more about that because so many folks have that soupy, kind of a syrupy, soft, draggy leg action underneath them. But the whole way through that motion, Jerry, you were sitting there in a hot squat and you were working hard, right?
Yeah, I was, and I was keeping both. I was trying to keep both feet on the ground, and not losing any of that engagement as I was coming through.
Which begs the question, Phil. So he was in that beautiful squat through impact, and as the body was rotating, because this is a dynamic exercise. But as he gets sort of post impact, could also work into some extension in that forward leg and still stay in that body angle like a Dustin Johnson, for argument's sake?
Absolutely. And he was doing that. It might have been hard to see at that angle of the camera, Mark, but as he was coming through, he was definitely starting to come up out of it, like you said, but still back, right? He's not coming off the wall.
Lovely. Wow, that's tremendous stuff. And you call it neuroreflexive training. So you're putting force on one, so you got to learn to oppose that force, really.
Right, because most people, their bodies work in patterns, and it's very difficult to change those patterns, as you know, as a golf coach. So in order to get their brain to comprehend what you're asking them to do, you almost need to work them, exaggerate what they were doing before, but try to have them resist that then.
And a lot of these, I mean, you've been around to help Jerry here, but if the folks see these exercises, they do them, you can do them by yourself in your room, in the gym, wherever. You just need a rubber band, basically.
Right. I tried to make it as low tech as possible because you can travel, you can do this in a hotel room, like you say, or anywhere. It doesn't cost a lot of money, but it's super effective.
Fantastic. All right. So we've now hit the early extension through impact.
Yep.
The follow through. Let's finish this thing in style, please.
Sure. Okay. So we're going to use the band again. You can use the same $5 band. I'll use this one just because I like it. So what we're going to do here, Mark, is a lot of people, in my opinion, can't really get through the ball as they want to because, again, their obliques are weak and they don't have that stabilizing effect as they're kind of whipping through it at the finish. So what we need to do again is to strengthen these obliques, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, as this one here is contracting, this one needs to be able to lengthen and stretch, or either one doesn't work properly. You can't do the motion.
Okay, this looks fascinating. This exercise you were demonstrating there sort of looks, folks, like one's getting into a sidearm throwing position. You hold the.
I think that'd be a good way to describe it for sure.
You've heard of Hogan describing the golf swing as if one was skipping stones across a pond.
Yeah,
you're holding the rubber band in the trail hand, the right hand, and then you're in posture and you're trying to rotate into the follow through, and the band is holding you back, and so. Right. This is working those obliques, correct?
Yeah. So for a more elite athlete, I would recommend doing this with each hand separately and then together. For the sake with Jerry, we're going to do this with two hands, but you're exactly right. You should be doing it with one hand at a time. So Jerry's just going to grab this like he's in his golf posture. He's going to come through to his finish position. He's going to get right to the top. So he's going to get up as high as he can. And you can feel that there, Jerry, through the obliques and trying to hold yourself there. Yeah. And you're going to try and hold that there. And I'm just going to give him a little support here, Mark. And now he's going to hold his hands here and just feel like he's bringing his shoulder back to his address position. So I want you to come back this way, Jerry, but keep your hands there. Yeah, like that. Perfect. So he's rotating back into that arm, Mark. So he's got to turn these on, okay, and keep the hands high. So he's actually like, he's counter forcing against his muscles.
Okay. So here's the description, folks. So Jerry has gone all the way into the follow through as far as what the rubber band would let him.
You're going to try
That's not just rotation, it's push upward.
Perfect.
Now in that push upward position, he's keeping his arms up there in the follow through place, but he's trying to rotate his core back to where he was at address. Jerry, take a breath.
A little pretzel.
So Mark, the idea of that is, you know how when you go to the top and you see the gears captures at the start, there's that little bit of that angle. Your chest is coming into your arm before the hands start down, right? Mm-hmm. So we're trying to get him up there and just try to work that in the same idea, but the opposite direction.
Okay, if you were watching, you would have seen me sit back and take a deep breath, because so many things in my life and my career come back to a little guy who dresses in black, who lives in the Hall of Fame. His name's Gary Player. And Mr. Player told me many moons ago I was a dot. He goes, swing the club in both directions. Swing it back, swing it through, swing it back, swing it through, and swing it. Mm-hmm. And when you go from the follow through and you swing it to the backswing, you're moving in reverse. So you're working both sides of the body.
Exactly right.
Variation.
Yeah. And by doing that, you'll be able to get through those sticking points that most people have easier.
It's amazing too. I want to quickly talk about speed, because I gave a ladies clinic the other day, and a lot of them beginners. And I've had little stations, kind of like you would set up, where it was find the base of the swing, et cetera, et cetera. And that what you're showing me there, variation of this, I'd have them pose what should be decent follow through, a complete follow through position, but you pose it. And then from there, you swing back into your backswing, and then you try and swing all the way through to where you were. Is this jiving with what you're talking about?
Sure. Yeah, you're giving your brain where you want to be. And in order for you to finish there, your brain has to calculate how it's going to get there. So that's exactly right.
Very cool.
Yeah, it is so cool. It's amazing to me. Is there anything else? Because now I want to pick your brain for a little while. Are there any other exercises you want to demo?
Well, maybe we could just do another good stretch for people that just would cover a lot of different things, and then we can finish and Jerry can rest and have a protein shake.
You could have a cappuccino or something. Yeah, okay, right. Yeah, lovely. I'd love to see one more. That'd be tremendous.
Just quickly, I think most people have heard of this stretch. It's called the Bretzel Stretch. So we're going to get in that, Jerry, where you're at in the 90-90 position, like this, like this. Oh. So we're going to rotate up, and this is really going to get, again, the hips, the obliques, the areas that most people struggle with in the golf swing.
Oh man, you're a messenger from heaven, because this is one that I need to do. Folks, think of the 90-90 thing with your forward leg out in front of you 90 degrees, your back leg behind you 90 degrees. But now there's a variation on this, is that Phil is having Jerry
up, chest up, and then he's going to sink away from that front leg. So you're going to sink this way here. Yeah.
So he's not just doing the 90-90 with the hips, but now he's leaning over his forward leg.
Yeah,
putting hands on the ground, but you're trying to sink in the opposite direction toward the back leg.
Yeah. So think of this kind of mark as this would be the backswing for a right-handed golfer. Your hands are kind of in that orientation.
Alrighty, huh?
Your chest is kind of that way as well, and your hips you're trying to use your hips to counterforce the rotation of your chest.
Yeah, this is worth a view. I've got to try and describe it one more time though. So 90-90, and we're looking at Jerry. Hold it there for a second, my friend, with his right leg in a 90-degree position, leg inward. And then the left leg is behind him in 90 degrees across the knee. Now he's reached out across his right leg, put his hands on the ground, and you holding that position. How long should one hold it?
Maybe like if you could go for 45 seconds to a minute a few times.
Good golly,
right?
45 seconds, Lord almighty.
Yeah, because we're trying to not only influence the muscle, as you know, Mark, we're trying to get the fascia. A lot of the brain sensation of tightness is actually sensed from the fascia, the fascial component of the muscle. So you need to hold those stretches a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. And then to add to this now, for an elite person, Jerry would now straighten his back leg out to the side, straight out, and do that same motion, and he's going to get a lot of hamstring, a lot of oblique. So that's like an accoutrement to that stretch, so to speak.
Well, word of the day, their accoutrement. But what I caught myself in that it's so easy to just collapse across your chest because your hands are on the ground.
Right.
You trying to lift that chest to the sky too.
Which is what we want to get in the backswing, right? Yeah.
In the backswing. And then you hold that for a while, then you flip legs as Jerry is doing right now, and you get the other side.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Right. So it's about balance, Mark. It's about symmetry. It's about preparing your muscles to react explosively.
I'm going to talk about something that everyone thinks trite, but I did a yoga class the other day, and I could take the proper yoga breaths when I was lying on my back. But then as soon as we got into a position like Jerry was in, the breathing went sour quickly. Let's talk about breathing in those positions because it's important, but nobody really does it.
Right. And breath is important just in general, because as you know, you can get more activation through your core with a hard exhale. You know, again, going back to judo or karate or martial arts, there's always when anybody's striking wood or boards or something, you hear that hard explosive exhale at the point of impact.
There's a golfer. He's won on the European Tour, Dani van Tonder. And he, athletic, strong guy, used to box a lot. And he'd box with his dad. And one of the boxing things, as you say, is there's that inhale and the exhale. And his backswing, he breathes in, and through contact, you can hear him force the air out. To this day, if they had mics on him, you'd be surprised. But I'm glad you said that, because I don't think folks are aware of how they breathe when they're on the golf course too, because it's kind of, the body's oxygen, fuel, I should say.
Yeah, for sure. And nobody is immune from an important shot. You're being more tense.
Yeah.
So tension and breathing kind of go together.
Okay. You've shown us these sensational exercises. I've talked about frequency of each exercise, repetitions or time.
Mm-hmm.
How about, is this a day-to-day thing, or advise the folks a little bit? The elite athlete, obviously you're doing things every day, but for just the average old golfer watching or listening to this, what would you recommend?
I'd recommend they do it as much as they can. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
3 to 4 times a week is optimal.
All right.
But when you assess a person, you're trying to distill down to maybe 5 or 6 of the most important things, so that you understand they have time restraints and other things going on. So if you can get to the 5 or 6 main ingredients that they need, 3 or 4 times a week they would see probably a big difference in 3 to 4 weeks.
Tremendous. And then you said to Jerry, you're like, okay, go get a protein shake. What about nutrition before and or after? What are your recommendations for folks for when they sort of get into this mindset to say, okay, I'm going to work on this now, but this is when I should time my eating and drinking on either side?
Yeah, I think they're discovering more now, Mark, that 1 hour window after you work out in order to eat protein or carb or whatever it is that you're eating, it's not as important as they first thought it was.
Yeah, right.
For nutrition, I follow a doctor on YouTube. He's amazing, Dr. Ted Naiman. And he talks about protein to energy, that ratio, and how we generally need more protein and less carb and fat as a society in general. And I think as athletes too, there's the ketogenic diet and things like that, where your body learns to burn more fat. And for these kind of workouts, I don't think you need a huge caloric consumption before, it's not like a stage of the Tour de France and Chris Froome is going to win the yellow jersey. This is, you're probably burning, with the warm up, probably 300 to 500 calories.
Oh, really?
It's muscularly demanding, but it's not like you're burning a ton of calories. So it's not like a 1,500 calorie bike ride or something like that. So
still, for the folks who sort of largely sedentary and playing golf in a golf cart and such, this is what, 30 minutes of your day?
Yeah, 30 to 45 minutes, hopefully.
If you can knock out that, that's doing yourself a few favors too.
Yeah, it's a big difference. And if they, weight management, as you know, Mark, is an important part of being healthy your whole life or being a better athlete. So I definitely recommend your listeners or viewers checking out Dr. Naiman's site. It's excellent in terms of calories and what you need to improve your body mass.
Well, listen, Dr. Neyman's one thing, you're entirely another, and the information you've brought on both podcasts have been fantastic. It's been nice for people to be able to see this. Now, let's say the folks look and they're now interested and they want to hear because we teased and someone's elite. They're like, I want to get the bigger stuff. Can they find out more from you? And if so, where?
Yeah. So if they can go to my website, I do private consultations, genesisclinic.ca, Genesis spelled like the Bible.
All right.
And I do a lot of virtual visits and things like that if they're interested. And I'm happy to come back on and we can do an elite program if you'd like as well.
I would. I know you tinkle around on social media. So what's the handle there?
It's the same, genesisclinic.ca.
Phil, I appreciate you so much. Like I said, I was having so much fun looking through this again, and I did some of the exercises when you first sent it to me, and then I sort of lost the spirit a little bit, and I didn't. And all of a sudden, my shoulder and arm started hurting, so I got back into your book, and we're doing better thanks to you. So, thanks for everything you do, and thanks for helping me, and thanks for sharing your insights with our audience. I appreciate you.
Mark, great to be on with you. Thank you very much.